Hey there, welcome to SI Now. It's Monday, October 31st, and I'm Maggie Gray. The Cubs don't need Halloween to scare them straight. Facing elimination for the second straight game, the World Series shifts back to Cleveland on Tuesday, and we're ready to break down the action.
Chappie came in and done something I guess he's never done before. So yeah, there's all kinds of drama out there. When you have a guy like that that can pitch that many significant outs in the latter part of the game, it's pretty cool.
That was Joe Maddon, World Series champion and Emmy Award-winning analyst for both TBS and SNY. Ron Darling is here to help us explain a little what we're seeing in the World Series. You just heard from Maddon about Aroldis Chapman coming in for an 8-out save. Are we going to see Maddon use Chapman in this way again in Game 6, Ron?
You know, Maggie, I think one of the great things about the postseason is the off days. I mean, they're so important. So they have an off day today. He'll be ready to go on Tuesday night. I think the most difficult part for them is if you have to use them again, like they did last night in Tuesday's game, will he be ready for Wednesday if they get there? But what a job by Miller and Allen and all these relievers. I think that's really been the theme of the postseason.
Absolutely, and you saw Maddon really take a page from Terry Francona's book in using Chapman for that 8-out save. Has this postseason just redefined how to use a bullpen to win a series?
I think what it has shown is that you can't trust pitchers to go 3 or 4 times through a lineup. So what happens once they get to the third time through the lineup, if the manager kind of smells something iffy, he'll go straight to the bullpen. That being said, these are elite teams. So they're going to the elite pitchers, elite guys in the bullpen. There's a lot of teams out there that don't have those kind of studs in the bullpen.
All season long, the Cubs have been the favorite, obviously fighting history, but the team is stacked top to bottom. Now they find themselves facing elimination yet again. How do you think they've handled the pressure?
I think they've handled it pretty well. I have to be honest, I thought it was going to be impossible once they got back to Chicago because I think there's a fan base there that has just really, they're counting on this. They really need this championship. And they're so close. That being said, I just thought there was a lot of pressure on them to go back, and you could see it in their play 2 nights ago. They did not look like a championship kind of team, but they did last night. So they've righted the ship, but again, it goes back to Cleveland, and Cleveland now has a little bit of an advantage because of the home field.
Yeah, although Schwarber comes back, so perhaps that gives the Cubs a little bit of a boost. You know, 2 Cubs have really been criticized for not busting it out of the box, so to speak, Jorge Soler and also with Anthony Rizzo. Is Joe Maddon not getting the max effort from these guys?
Yeah, Wilson Contreras. Another? No, I think what has happened is we're having a little transformation in the game now from all of the old school guys where you run everything out and attention to detail and don't embarrass the team or yourself to a game that has more flair and guys standing at the plate and flipping their bats and all that kind of stuff. Now, when I played, I wouldn't have appreciated it, but I understand it. Today's player wants to have a little more flair, a little, I don't know, be a little more like the young people out there, you know, just make it a little more interesting, entertaining.
Right, but does it coming at a cost? It comes at a cost.
It comes at a cost because, you know, you can play the game correctly and still have a lot of fun doing it. And if Wilson Contreras had thrown his bat down, had sprinted around second base and made it to third, that's just as, I mean, almost as exciting as if he'd hit the ball at the ballpark. So I think that there's a fine line that these guys are kind of, you know, teetering on. And let's hope they figure it out.
Yeah, I think so, right? There's not a lot of season left to be played. I mentioned Kyle Schwarber. He does come back into the lineup as a DH because the Indians are in the American League. How big of a boost will this be, do you think?
Well, one of the greatest stories I've ever seen happen in Major League Baseball for a guy to spend all year rehabbing his knee. But once I got into it and I started reading that he spent the whole year with the team, he went to team meetings, he really felt like he was part of it even though he wasn't producing. I think that made the transition back a little easier mentally, not physically. Physically, it was going to be tough, but it just shows he's a natural. You know, there's a reason why they picked him as their first pick. He's a guy that, you know, you could probably wake him up when he's 55 years old and he could go 2 for 4. One of those guys.
We should all be so lucky. 37 years, that's how long it's been since a team was down 3-1 and came back and won the World Series on the road. Do the Cubs have the chance to pull this feat off?
Yeah, they are. They do definitely have a chance.
Do you think they will?
I don't think they will. And tonight they have an advantage. I think, Arrieta over Tomlin, you would have to say, boy, Arrieta has the edge. I just think that this is Cleveland's entire calendar year with the Cavaliers and now with the Indians.
There's a special event happening in New York City. That's happening tomorrow night, which I'm not sure how you're going to go to both of these things, Ron, watch a baseball game and also go, but I'll leave that up to you. That's why DVR was invented, the 44th annual Promise Ball. Tell us about this.
Well, what's great about it, JDRF has been around since 1970, has raised close to $2 billion for type 1 diabetes research, cure, prevention. And it hits me at home because my middle son, Jordan, is 22 years old now. We found out when he was 10 years old that he was type 1 diabetic. And, I just so happy to be part of JDRF and all the great things that they do to try to hopefully find a cure someday.
Yeah, juvenile diabetes research. How can other people get involved? If you can't come to the gala in New York, but if you're watching if you want to somehow be part of the solution here, what can people do?
Well, of course, online, you can go to jdrf.org. I think it's an important thing. But also, I think it's one of the things about when your kid gets sick is you become really smart quickly because you have to figure out how to make their life a little easier. And I think that, there's 1.25 million people have type 1 diabetes now. By 2050, there could be 5 million people. So it's something that I think, even if it hasn't hit your family yet, it's something that you should know about because it could help you in the future.
For parents out there who are dealing with this, what's your message to them?
My message to them is that even though it's a kind of a family disease and you're in it together to try to help your young one make it a little easier, they spend a lot of time alone with this disease, and I think it's really important that you make sure that they know that you're there 24/7.
Ron Darling, really appreciate you coming by. Have fun. 44th Annual Promise Ball. No one would blame you if you went to the ball and watched the game on delay.
I'm definitely going to go to the game, so don't spoiler alert.
Okay, no social media for you.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Maggie.
Now for a look at the NFL. Let's head to Canty's Corner with our own Ryan Aselta and Super Bowl champion Chris Canty. Hey, guys.
Yeah, Maggie, what a crazy Week 8 we had in the NFL. 7 games decided by a touchdown or less, plus our second tie in a matter of 7 days. You got to be kidding me. And that's where we're going to start in Canty's Corner. And, Chris, the London game ends like a English Premier League soccer game. Redskins and Bengals, they play to a 27-27 tie. This comes a week after the Cardinals-Seahawks snooze fest of a 6-6 tie in Week 7. What do you think? Should NFL games ever end in a tie?
Well, I think they should. I mean, when you look at the London game yesterday, both teams didn't do anything to suggest that they should win the football game. I mean, you got to execute if you want to win football games. You got to earn your wins in this league. That's what Bill Parcells used to always preach to his teams. And when you look at how those teams lost, especially how those teams didn't win, the poor execution, and then obviously the kicker from the Washington Redskins missing the kick that would have kept the game out of overtime as a situation. You got to earn the right to win in this league, and neither team did that yesterday in London.
NFL went 33 weeks without a tie until these 2 ties in the last week, so it's not really commonplace.
Almost had a third yesterday.
Yeah, almost.
That Oakland-Tampa game.
All right, topic number 2. The Packers and Falcons go down to the wire. Matt Ryan leads the last-minute touchdown drive to beat Green Bay. Big penalty in this game. 12 men on the field penalty, though, extended a Packers drive. What do you think, Chris? Should replay include more penalties than what we've seen?
If we've got the opportunity to get the calls right, I think we should utilize the technology. There's so much riding on these NFL regular season games. There are only 16 opportunities to give yourself a chance to get to the postseason. So I think it's important that the NFL place an emphasis on making sure that they get the calls right. So expanding replay to include other penalties, I think, should be on the table. Now, certainly you want to keep up the pace of play, but I think it's important that we get all of these calls right. That's the right thing to do for these football teams. It's the right thing to do for the fans.
All right, next topic. Showdown in the NFC East as the Cowboys come back to beat the Eagles in overtime and grab a 2-game lead in the division. Chris, really a statement win here for the Cowboys. Has Dallas established themselves now as the best team and arguably the best division in football?
Well, I think they're a top 5 team. I'm not going to go as far to say the NFC East is the best division in football. I think the AFC West would have something to say about it, but really impressed by what the Dallas Cowboys have been able to do. And Dak Prescott, again, continuing his performance in big-time moments. Didn't play as well as I would have liked to see him play during the course of regulation. He forced some mistakes, an interception in there, which is something that he hasn't done. He's been very careful with the ball to this point, but really impressed by what he did in the overtime game, being able to manage, facilitate that offense, and come away with the win, doing enough for his football team, getting the guys to rally around him. They played with poise, they played with confidence, and the chemistry that team is playing with right now is really impressive. I just can't say enough about Dak Prescott. The moment's not too big for him, and I found that out in the preseason when you watched him play, and he's just continued that. He's only going to get better from here.
All right, our last topic, Cam Newton and the commish. The Panthers defeat the Cardinals on Sunday, but Cam Newton not happy after the win. Cam was upset about getting hit as much as he did, including below his knee. Really scary hit he took there in the pocket. Newton says he's going to speak to Roger Goodell about the hits and that the issue is causing him to not have fun. What do you think, Chris? How much credibility does Cam have on this issue?
He absolutely has credibility. He has a point when you start seeing the hits that teams are taking against him. And we saw it in the season opener against the Denver Broncos. He took some vicious shots from that defense, and that's continued throughout the course of the regular season. Obviously, the hit yesterday by Calais Campbell, though it wasn't unintentional, it certainly is a penalty, and they didn't call it. They missed it on the field, and I think that it's time for the NFL to hold the officials to the standard that they hold the players on the field. When players make a mistake, they get fined, they get disciplined. I think it's a situation where these officials need to be disciplined in some form or fashion in order to make sure that we get these calls right and we protect the players. If it's about player safety, if that's a priority for this league, then you've got to make sure that your actions show that, demonstrate that. And yesterday, it didn't because they missed the call. It was certainly a roughing call on Cam Newton. You've got to protect everybody that's out there on the field, but especially the quarterback and particularly the reigning defending MVP.
I have a little bit of issue with Cam on this because I understand the hit was dirty and it was below the knee and should have been called absolutely.
I don't think it was dirty. It wasn't dirty. But
I guess that's the wrong word. You're right. You're right. It should have been a penalty, and it was dangerous.
Yes.
Scary play as a quarterback.
Yes.
But he's got to let his coach handle that. Send the tape to the office. They can review it. They hand out the fine. They go from there. Cam is turning into a big me guy very quickly. The last 2 weeks now, who are we talking about after the Panthers win? Cam Newton. It has nothing to do with the game. This week, are we talking about a big win for the Panthers? A crucial win. They needed that win over Arizona to keep their season alive. No, we're talking about Cam Newton. A week ago, they lose. He won't talk about anything. He blows off the media, gives two-word answers like we saw in the Super Bowl. You know, he wants to be the leader of this franchise, Chris, and a leader in this league where he's representing quarterbacks with what he's saying yesterday. You got to lead when you win and when you lose, not when it's convenient for Cam Newton to lead.
Agreed. I think leadership is important, and I blasted Cam Newton for walking away during that press conference in New Orleans after a tough loss, and I get it. I understand that it's difficult, but he still has a responsibility to his teammates to set the agenda for the football team moving forward and answer those difficult questions. But I don't think that has anything to do with what we saw in the field in terms of him getting that hit in the pocket, jeopardizing his health for the regular season, jeopardizing his team and his availability, jeopardizing his team being able to have success because they need Cam Newton. And so I think this is an issue that the league has to prioritize in terms of player safety and making sure that they get those roughing calls, unnecessary roughness calls correct, particularly when it pertains to the quarterbacks. Cam now is taking it public because he's expressing his frustration, and rightfully so.
A little overtime here. Some news this afternoon. Longtime wide receiver Andre Johnson announces retirement today in the middle of the season. So he is done after 14 years in the NFL. He made most of his big news in the NFL with the Houston Texans. Chris, when you look at a guy like Johnson, came out of Miami, was so highly touted, had some big years in the league. Where does he rank, and does he have a spot in Canton one day?
I think he does have a spot in Canton one day. You think about how he's held that Houston Texans franchise up for a long time, where he was only the only weapon that they had, being able to help them get some level of consistency and credibility as a contender in the National Football League. You can't tell the story about the last 10 years of the wide receiver position without Andre Johnson being included. So I think there is a spot for him, and I hope he gets in because he's a great guy. He's a pro's pro, but he's a great guy as well off the field. So cheer for Andre Johnson.
All right, that was overtime. How about a little double overtime?
Let's do it.
No ties here.
No ties
in Katie's Quarter.
All right,
absolutely not. Midway point of the season, 8 weeks in now. Who is your midseason MVP?
It's got to be Tom Brady, right?
Wow, after missing 4 weeks.
After missing 4 weeks, but you look at the numbers. I mean, he's topping numbers that he put up during his MVP season. I mean, 1,300 yards, over 70% completion percentage. You look 12 touchdowns. Just the way that he's dominating. He's surgical out there right now, and I don't see this slowing down. He's playing with a huge chip on his shoulder, and how great would it be to see Roger Goodell have to hand Tom Brady an MVP trophy? Wouldn't that be awesome? Wouldn't that be awesome?
He'd be relishing that,
he'd love it, right? I mean, it's just the NFL loves drama and loves storylines. What better storyline than that?
How about that? 4 games only, and he's Chris Canty's MVP. Maggie?
Thank you, Ryan and Chris. Well, the NBA season, just a week old, but it's never too early to get the thoughts of Basketball Hall of Famer, 3-time champion, and Turner Sports NBA analyst Kevin McHale. He'll be on Tuesday, the first NBA TV fan night, which will feature a doubleheader. The Rockets and the Cavs is up first. Warriors and Trailblazers on the nightcap. Kevin, so good to talk with you. We don't have a very large sample size, but at this point, if you're picking an NBA champion, will you take the Warriors or the field?
I might, the Warriors, I thought you were going to say, or Cleveland. Warriors or the field, another side. You know what? I would probably just take the field just in a simple reason that it's a long, long season, and, boy, you're one sprained ankle away or whatever. But all things being equal, everybody staying healthy, that's if I was actually betting my own money. But since I'm not, I will tell you that Golden State, I think Golden State has an opportunity to put together a kind of a unique type team. They're really going to be able to score. They're not going to be as good defensively. They lost Bogut, and I thought he really helped them lock down the paint. And Durant's never been a great defender, and Steph Curry's not a great defender, but they score so much. They put so much pressure on you. And right now, I just, watching them a little bit, they're still trying to find their rhythm. They're overthinking everything. I see Golden State right now trying too hard to try to manipulate the game. Let the game come. If Steph Curry's got it going, he gets the majority of the shots. If Durant's got it going, let him go. If Draymond Green's playmaking and hooping and getting him the ball. If Klay Thompson, so they just need to play. But I think they'll figure that out.
Okay, so when you say that they're overthinking it, if they're going to correct that, is that something that the players have to determine, or is that on Steve Kerr?
No, I think it's got to be the player. Steve's not out there. Steve does a great job with that team. But they just got to quit thinking prior to the game, how many shots am I going to get? So when you look at really, really good teams, which they are, with 4 fantastic players and a lot of other guys that that can fill in and do their job, and they have a nice mesh of guys, let the game dictate it and quit worrying about everything else. Just go out there. And it's a very simple game when you get down to the point that the flow of the game dictates where the ball goes. That's A. And B, if you don't have the ball, defend. That's not that hard. You can't play offense if you don't have the ball. Everybody buy in defensively, and then just let the flow go and really enjoy your teammates' success. Walk in the locker room and say, man, I tell you what if you're Kevin Durant, you walk in, you go, man, look, I had 15 points tonight. But you walk in and Klay Thompson had 38 and Steph had 35. You walk in, you go, what a great game. Yeah. Man, we won. And that's win basketball games. And they're not going to win 73 again, by the way. How they won 73 last year still is amazing to me. If they win the mid-60s, that's a hell of a year. If they 60, 65, 66, that's a hell of a year. That's probably where they'll end up in that mid-60 range.
Although it's hard to see what games they're going to be losing, any serious amount of games. It's interesting when you talk about teammates being happy for each other and you talk about chemistry. The last team you coached, the Rockets, it was clear that the chemistry, they had some issues between Harden and Dwight Howard. And I'd love to get your thoughts now about James Harden moving over to the point guard position. And you said before, it's kind of hard to change who you are. Harden is a scorer. Now he's going to have to be a facilitator and a scorer. What do you want to see early on, Kevin, that will show you whether or not Harden will be a good fit at point guard?
Well, he's really had the ball the last 3 years in Houston almost all the time anyways, because he's been de facto point guard, even though no one called him point guard. James had the ball more than anybody. And at the end of the day, James gets the most juice from scoring the ball. I mean, he's a scorer, but there's nothing wrong with that. That's not an indictment. There's a lot of guys that are scorers. can he, when things aren't going well, can he still facilitate? Can he still move the ball? Can he still have trust in his teammates when they're missing shots? Just keep on feeding him the ball, not worry about, like, hey, this guy's missed his last 3 shots. Am I going to get it to him? Just let the flow of the game dictate. And if James has any problems, although he holds on to the ball too long, always had in double team situations when they put 2 on the ball. Simple game in the NBA, and I talk about simplicity a lot because really you're playing basketball. We've got to the point where we've confused basketball, I think, with rocket science. I mean, this is basketball. And if there's 2 on the ball, I'll give you a real quick math thing. If there's 2 on the ball, that's 3 left to guard 4. 3 cannot guard 4. So you got to get the ball out of your hands quickly. He holds it when he gets frustrated. He holds it when his teammates miss a little bit. And that is, that's what I'm saying. That's why there's not a lot of guys who come into our league who haven't been pass first guys who turn into pass first guys. Conversely, Kevin Garnett, who just retired, when he came to Minnesota and we drafted him there, he was a pass first guy and was a pass first guy his entire career, which is amazing that he scored 25,000 points. It just shows you what a great player he was. But he was a pass first guy his first day of practice, and he was a pass first guy his last day of practice that he left the NBA. It's kind of who you are. And can James do that when it doesn't go well? And you're talking about chemistry. Yeah, there was a lot of chemistry issues with those teams, and it just seemed like it was hard to get everybody on the same page and everybody really digging in, and it just was an odd mix. And a lot of times people start blaming people for chemistry. It wasn't Howard's fault. It wasn't Harden's fault. It wasn't Daryl Morey's fault. You just had a strange group of guys kind of collected in there, and sometimes there's just not a fit. That is why everybody doesn't marry everybody in the world. You marry the person that's right for you. And you might walk in a room, there might be 50 people in there, and none of them are right for you. So there's chemistry involved in everything.
Sorry, Kevin, I just want to jump in for 1 second, though, just because, I just want to follow up on what you're saying, because I think it's so interesting, because I think a lot of times a GM or you're building a team and you feel like you just need superstars. And if you put superstars together, well, then basketball becomes very easy. And then you can, be playing 5-on-4 and you can, have all these advantages. You said this recently about your good friend, former teammate, Celtics general manager Danny Ainge, about acquiring more pieces to the Celtics roster. This is what you said. I just think he's waiting. I think he knows he's got to get another really special type player. He was all in for Durant. He'll get that superstar eventually. Danny will land that. Do you think Ainge has a move up his sleeve this season to get another superstar?
Yeah, I do. I think what he's doing is he's just staying, he's laying in wait. And Daniel, which I said also in that thing, which I find hilarious, one of the most impulsive people that I've known. He's one of my best friends. And he's really patient, which is he's got to be driving himself crazy because he'd like to make 9 trades yesterday. And so he's got these assets, but what he's going to do is he's just going to watch. And there will be a team that will have a very, very good player that will just decide to go in another direction. But that always happens every year. Danny will pounce on that. Then you add that to what he has. He'll have to go with some assets, but he's good at deciding what assets he wants to give up and what assets fit. And Danny's a firm believer in chemistry and all those things. So he'll look at everything. He won't take a bad guy to put into this mix because he's got a great mix of young guys. And I just think he's got a really nice team, but they need that next piece. And I'm confident Danny will get it done.
Kevin McHale back, Turner Sports NBA analyst, of course. On Tuesday, it's fan night, always very fun on NBA TV. Doubleheader action, Rockets against the Cavaliers at 7 p.m. Eastern, then Warriors at Trailblazers at 10 p.m. Kevin, hope to get you back on the show again. There's so many things we could talk to you about. Love getting your insight. Thank you. All right, take care. Have a good day. Okay, thank you so much. That's going to do it for this Monday edition of SI Now. We will be back tomorrow with NFL on Fox host Kurt Menefee will join us. But until then, you can keep up with all the latest sports news on SI.com. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. We'll see you tomorrow.